Good day, students, and welcome back to our oral communication in context class for the second week. Okay, last week we studied about the elements and process of communication, and now our topic is communication models and functions of communication. And now let's start. Before we go on to the discussion proper, I will present to you the five learning objectives that we have. First is identify the functions of communication, differentiate the various models of communication. The third one is explain the process of communication through the elements involved, modify a communication model, and recognize the importance of models in understanding the communication process as applied in everyday life. So you need to remember this learning objectives that we have so that after we finish our discussion, you will be able to go back in this learning objectives so that you can check if we already met these objectives. Okay, so let's proceed to our discussion. Okay, models of communication. Why we need to use model of communication? We use models to present or to simplify the concept of communication. Okay, by using graphical format or graphical objects. Okay, so again, we use model to represent or to simplify the concept of communication using graphical format or graphical objects. Okay. Next, let's talk about the first model, main model of communication. First is linear model of communication. In linear model of communication, it is a one-way process, one-way communication. It is focusing on the transmission of a message to a receiver who responds or has no way of responding to the information conveyed. As you can see in the linear model, in the diagram specifically, you can see four elements of communication, which is the speaker or the sender message, the receiver or the barrier or the noise. Okay, as you can see, it has a straight line or straight arrow rather. It means that it is one-way communication process. It means that there is no feedback in this linear model of communication. Okay, you have to remember that this model of communication has no feedback at all. Okay, so like what I've said last week, we can have good and effective communication, but we can't have perfect communication because we can always experience barriers or noises. Okay, so that's for the linear model of communication. Okay, next, before the model of communication under the linear model, I will give you some example. Okay, some example of linear model of communication is delivering speech. Okay, and this linear model of communication, I will give you physical examples or real situation that is happening physically. Delivering speech, you will be able to deliver your speech, but your audience can give you feedback or can give you reaction or responses. Um, next is that um, what do you call that? Um, you are um, talking to someone, but he is or she is not interested to give you feedback or to back. Um, That's why it is linear communication because the receiver has no intention to give you a feedback. Okay, so that's for the linear model of communication. And under the linear model of communication, there is one model of communication also. It is called Shannon-Weaver model of communication. And Shannon-Weaver model of communication, it is proposed by Shannon and Weaver. They wrote or they wrote a mathematical theory of communication. So this model is the mother of all the models. It means that there is no other models after this kung hindi sila dito kumuha. Okay, so parang this is the basic model, or dito sila nag-base to create another kinds or another types of model. Okay, so again, as you can see, there is five elements of communication in this diagram or in this model. We have the source or the speaker, we have the message, the noise, of course, the receiver, and the destination. Okay, so in information source, the speaker, syempre, yung speaker yon, the message, and the message will be encoded, or the speaker will be able to encode the message in terms of transmitter, okay? By using different signals, okay? It is up to the speaker what signal he will use or she will use. Okay, so after the signal that you use to send the message, you can experience noise or barrier. Okay, and then after that, barrier is caused to delay or cause to have a problem in communication, but the message will still arrive in its destination. Ayan, nasa huling-huling box as you can see. Okay, so in this Weaver communication, it is also a linear model of communication, type of linear model of communication. It means in this model, there is no feedback at all, no responses, no reaction. Okay, so after the message has arrived to its destination, that will be the end of conversation. Okay, so aside of that, Shannon Weaver model of communication is the model that it is more technological than the other linear models. Okay, what does it mean, Miss JV? Diba, linear model, a while ago, I told you some examples of it, physical, diba, physical situation or situation that we encounter physically. But in the Shannon Weaver model of communication, it is more technological. It means that you are using technology for you to use this model or for you to send a message. Example of that, sending emails. Okay, example, I want to send an email to you, but as a student, you are not into replying via email, right? So talagang no response, no reaction from you. And also, watching television. Okay, example, nanonood ka ng TV, pinalabas ang probinsyano. Hindi mo naman pwedeng sabihin, okay, ang probinsyano, 6 na taon ka na dyan, itigil mo na yan. No, di ba hindi? So, in watching television, you are not allowed to give feedback or responses or even reaction. Okay, and last example is that listening to the radio. Okay, example, you are always hearing about criminal news. Okay, so hindi ka na natutuwa kasi puro criminal news. Hindi mo naman murder news. Hindi mo naman pwede sabihin na, okay, radio, ayoko ng ganyang mga balita, ibahin mo naman. Okay, so there is no responses, there is no reaction. You will not be able to send it. Okay, in that examples. Okay, so that's for the linear model of communication. Okay, the next model of communication is transactional model of communication. Okay, in the transactional model of communication, it shows a circular process of communication, of interaction between the persons involved in the communication, with each one actively participating and sharing ideas with one another. They are the communicators actively exchanging information and reaction. As you can see in the diagram, it is circular process of communication. Why, Miss GV? Because as you can see in the arrow, okay, the arrow is not straight to the right only. Okay, it has left and it has right arrow in this diagram. It means that it is a circular process of communication. It means that in this model, the receiver and the speaker can change their roles as communicators. What does it mean, Miss JB? It means that the receiver can be the speaker also. The speaker can be the receiver also. Okay, that's why they can change their roles as communicators. Okay, so transactional model, we are using this often because um, always Rather, we are always using this kind of model because when we have a conversation or if we want to communicate with our friends, 'di ba? Napakaraming bagay na napag-uusapan natin. Okay? So, papalit-palit tayo ng topic and talagang may possibility na the sender and the speaker will change their roles as communicators. Okay? As you can see naman din, makikita nyo dyan sa diagram, there is many noises. Okay? Why? Because as you have or as you performing conversation or as you having a conversation with your friends or with your classmate, um, habang tumatagal yung pag-uusap nyo, lalo kayong makaka-experience ng noises. Okay? So, that is the disadvantage of using transactional model of communication. You will experience many noises because, yun nga, paikot-ikot yung pag-uusap nyo. So, sa katagal-tagalan yun ng pag-uusap, merong mga noises or barriers na ma-experience. Like, it could be psychological barrier, environment barrier, okay, physical barrier, and many, many more. Okay, so that's for transactional model. Example niyan, gaya ng sinabi ko, having a conversation with your family, having conversation with your friends, with your best friend. Okay, so that's for transactional model. Okay, and now let's proceed to the next model. Okay, next model is the interactive model. In the in interactive model, it is a two-way method of communication like transactional model of communication. Ayan, I will add in the transactional model of communication, it is a two-way process and it has feedback. Okay, so again, addition to the transactional model of communication, it has feedback and also it is a two-way process. And also ito pa pala, in transactional model of communication, the the communication in that model is simultaneously, okay, or simultaneous. Okay, it means sabay-sabay, pwede nating pagsabay-sabayan in this model of communication. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the interactive model. Okay, interactive model of communication, also, it is the same with the transactional model. It is a two-way process method of communication and also with feedback. But the difference between the two is that the feedback in interactive model came slower than we think. Okay? Hindi siya ganun kabilis gaya ng na-experience natin while having transactional model of communication. Okay? So, in this model, the feedback is not faster and also the communication in this model is not simultaneous. Okay? So, sometimes the communication can be linear if receivers do not reply to senders. Okay, in this model, as you can see in that, what do you call that, in that diagram, you can see that we have the element encoder, syempre yung encoding the speaker, the message, and the decoder also. And as you can see in the outside of the model or the diagram, makikita niyo yung field of experience. Field of experience, dito na lalabas yun. Dito na papasok yun. What are the field of experience, Miss JV? Field of experience, the examples of that are religion background, cultural background, your ethnicity, okay, your beliefs and opinions. Okay, so in that way, nagiging included siya sa interactive model of communication. Example of that, you want to ask me something about your activity, but I am having a class right now. So, I am not be able to reply to your message immediately because I have discussion with other section. Okay, so it is an example of interactive model. Okay, so later i-discuss natin sa SCRAM model of communication why kung ano yung example kapag may field of experience nang pumapasok. Okay, so SCRAM model of communication, it was proposed by Wilbur Scram. Okay, so as you can see in the SCRAM model of communication, in the diagram, merong noise and interference. Okay, so later I will explain it to you. So this model states that two elements are required to send the message, that is sender and the receiver. And both of them have to encode and decode the message. And in this model, this is crucial for the effectiveness and correct interpretation of message. Okay, so as you can see, like what I've said earlier, transactional and interactive model of communication, all almost the same. But as you can see, it is also a two-way process. It has feedback. But dito, nakikita nyo dito sa diagram na to, may interference. Okay? So after the speaker encoded the message into different signal, okay, and the receiver already decoded the message or interpret the message, and finally it arrives to the destination doon nga sa receiver, and syempre si receiver de-decode niya yung message, and um, he will send feedback. Okay, syempre, etong dito sa destination na to, babalik yan dapat dito sa source, tama? But, saan dumaan? Sa interference. Okay, what does it mean sa interference means, JV? Interference, it means that it is also considered as the barrier or the noise in the communication. Okay, so that, like what I've said earlier, in this model of communication, in interactive model, the feedback became slower. Okay, hindi siya agad-agad nasi-send, kundi nagiging mabagal ang pagdating niya. Okay, example of that. Um, Example, you are having a conversation with your friend, but your friend, the religion of your friend is Muslim. Okay, so you are Catholic, a Christian. Okay, so while having a conversation, biglang napasok yung religion nyo. Okay? So, ang mangyayari niyan, sasabihin, example, ikaw, oo, ganito, kayong mga Muslim talaga, ayaw nyo siguro sa mga Christian. Okay, kunyari nasabi nyo yon. Ayan na, no offense sa mga Muslim and no offense sa kung anumang religion nyo. This is only an example. Okay, so, ayan, ayaw nyo ba sa mga Christians? Yan, tinanong niya yung Muslim niya na friend. Siyempre, si Muslim, na friend, hindi naman siya immediately na magre-respond, right? Hindi niya naman sinabi, hindi niya naman sasabihin na, oo, ayaw na ayaw ko, 'di ba? They have to think first before answering that question. Okay, hindi naman pwedeng sabihin niya, oo, ayaw na ayaw ko kasi tinanong mo. Hindi naman, 'di ba? 'Di ba? Because as you as a person will answer that kind of crucial question, kailangan nyo think first muna, okay, before answering a question. Okay, kaya doon pumapasok yung field of experience rather, our background, our personal background, cultural background, religion background, okay? So that's for the model of SCRAM. Okay. So that's for the model of communication. Again, don't be confused because we have three main models of communication. These are linear model of communication, transactional model of communication, and interactive model of communication. Under the linear, we have Shannon-Weaver. Under the interactive, we have SCRAM model. Okay, so after discussing the models of communication, now let's proceed to the second topic, which is the functions of communication. Okay, so functions of communication serves in order to help you share your thoughts and ideas with individuals and with groups of people. Okay, so function number one is that communication function as a form of control. Okay, in communication, it helps regulate actions and behavior in order to establish the value of discipline. Okay, so example of communication function as a form of control, me as your teacher, I want you to be um, on time in our meeting link, in joining our meeting link. It means that I'm regulating you. I am giving you instruction for you to follow me and to have the discipline of punctuality. Okay? Excuse me. Okay, again, so that's for control. In communication, the function as form of control, you are controlling someone, you are controlling numbers of people. You are giving them instruction for them to follow. Okay, so next, another example, enforcer, 'di ba? Nire-regulate niya or gina-guide niya yung mga taong tatawid sa pedestrian lane. Okay? So that's for an example for this function of communication. Okay, the second function is communication functions to allow social interaction. The best way to share your thoughts and ideas is through social interaction. Okay, so last week we studied about why we need the importance of um, communication. Okay, why do we need to communicate? 'Di ba 'di ba yung pangalawa doon, communication to have social interaction through message, tama? So, isa 'yan sa mga function ng communication to allow social interaction like what I've said last week, social interaction can build relationship with one person to another person or to a group of people. Okay, because it is a way of sharing your ideas, sharing your thoughts, sharing your the things that you are interested to. Okay, so if you have social interaction with other people, you can share your thoughts. Masasabi mo yung mga gusto mong sabihin. Masishare mo, ay, ang ganda pala ng ganito, ay, ang ganda, ay, may naisip ako, ay, may naisip akong ganyan, ganito. Okay? So, that's for the second function. And let's proceed to the third function. We have communication functions to provide motivation. Communication helps you to provide positive words in order to give encouragement. You become an agent of change and positivity. Okay, so this function of communication, you are always doing this in your HGP session. Okay, HGP with your advisor. You are providing motivation. You are providing motivation to lift up someone, to cheer up someone, okay, to give positive thoughts with someone, with your best friend, with your classmate, with your family. That's right. So in that use of this function, you will be able to provide positive impact to other people. Okay, you can help them to cope up with the problems that they have. Okay, so that's for the third function of communication. And second to the last, we have communication function to help emotional expression. Okay, it feels good whenever you are able to speak about your joys and pains or your feelings or fulfillment and frustrations. It even feels better when you can express it with such intensity to equal the strength of such feeling. Okay, it really feels good if you can express your emotion to some people or to someone specifically. Okay, so it will lighten your burden if you can share your emotion with your classmate, with your teacher, with your family, okay, with your best friend. Okay, so in this function of communication, again, you are always doing this while having HGP session with your advisor. Okay, last week during our first week, 'di ba, meron kayong topic sa HGP, how to validate emotion ng mga tao. Doon natin nagagamit yung function ng communication na ito. Okay, to express our frustration, our thoughts about pain, failure, disappointment. Okay, so that's for the fourth function of communication. It is also very important for you to express your feelings or to express your emotion, not only to the people para malaman nila kung ano yung nararamdaman mo, but also for yourself to lighten your burden. Okay, so next, last, we have communication functions to facilitate information dissemination. Communication functions to convey information and provide awareness. In this function of communication, it is about disseminating information. You are giving a large number of people the information you want them to have. Okay, example of that. The news reporter wants to disseminate information about the election 2022 that the registration for new voters will be extended until October 31, 2021. Okay, so in that case, the reporter used the communication function to facilitate or to give information to the people, to the Filipino citizens of our country. Okay, so that's for the functions of communication. Okay, again, I will do a recap. Okay, we have three main models of communication. These are the linear, interactive, and transactional. Okay, under the linear, we have Shannon-Weaver model of communication, which is the mother of all the models. Under the interactive model, we have SCRAM model, and after that, we discuss about the functions of communication, which we have five. Okay, control or regulate. The next one is motivation, social interaction, emotional expression, and information dissemination. Okay, so that's all for today for our second week discussion, and I hope you learned something about our discussion today kahit hindi man tayo nagkita through Google Meet, okay, or virtually. So I hope naintindihan nyo, may natutunan kayo so that you can answer your activity number 3 and number 4, and also you can pass your performance task number 2. Okay, I will create separate instruction about the activities. Okay, so thank you for listening, students. God bless. Bye and take care.